Quiet street. A mother's scream. A little boy runs outside crying, "He hit my mother!" Within minutes, the sound of engines shakes the night. 3 bikers stop right in front of his house. What happened next changed that boy's life forever and taught the town what real revenge looks like. This is the story of a child's cry, a mother's pain, and the men who answered when no one else would. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more true and untold stories, where pain turns into power, and truth always finds its way. The sky was gray and heavy with clouds. Rain poured down on the quiet little street of Willow Creek, tapping against rooftops and splashing into puddles. Most people were inside, watching TV or sipping coffee, but from one small house at the end of the lane came a sound that froze the heart of anyone who heard it, a child crying. Inside that house, 8-year-old Tommy sat on the cold wooden floor, tears mixing with the rainwater that had seeped through the broken window. His small hands trembled as he tried to hold his mother's arm. Her lip was bleeding, and one side of her face had already started to swell. Across the room stood a tall man with a red face and clenched fists. His stepfather. Rick was drunk again. The smell of whiskey filled the air. He pointed at the boy with shaking fingers and yelled, "Stop crying, kid! You think someone's gonna help you? Nobody cares." Tommy flinched and turned his face away. He had learned that talking back only made things worse. He looked at his mother, who slowly whispered, "It's okay, baby. Just stay quiet." Her voice was weak but full of love. Rick stumbled toward the door, grabbed his leather jacket and shouted, "I'll be back when I damn please." The door slammed shut behind him, leaving the house in silence except for the sound of rain. Tommy sat still for a long time. He could hear his mother breathing softly beside him. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. "Mom, are you okay?" She gave him a faint smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Go to your room. It'll be okay." But it wasn't okay. Tommy knew that. It hadn't been okay for a long time. He had seen his stepfather throw things, break furniture, and once even hurt their dog. Every time his mother tried to protect him. Every time she told Tommy not to tell anyone. "People don't understand," she always said. "They'll just make things worse." That night, as the storm raged outside, Tommy sat by his small window, hugging his old teddy bear. Through the glass, he watched the empty street. In the distance, a faint rumble of motorcycle engines echoed through the rain, a sound that didn't belong to this quiet neighborhood. He wiped his tears and listened. The sound grew louder, closer. Within minutes, 3 bikes rolled into view, their headlights cutting through the rain. They stopped right outside his house. The engines shut off one by one. Tommy blinked. He didn't recognize them. Big men in leather jackets sat on the bikes, water dripping from their helmets. They looked like something out of a movie, dangerous, powerful, and calm. Then the biggest one of them took off his helmet. He had a long beard and a scar across his cheek. He looked up at the house and spoke in a deep voice to the others. "This is the place." Tommy's small heart raced. He didn't know who they were or why they were here. But deep down, something told him that this night was about to change everything. The rain kept falling as Tommy watched from behind the curtains. The bikers didn't move for a while. They just stood there, talking quietly among themselves. Their heavy boots splashed through the puddles, and steam rose from the engines of their bikes. The man with the scar, the one who had said, "This is the place," walked up to the porch and looked at the front door. He knocked twice, firm and slow. The sound echoed through the small house. Tommy's mother, Emily, stirred from the couch. Her face was pale and tired. "Tommy, who's at the door?" she asked weakly. "I don't know," he whispered. "There are bikers outside." Her eyes widened a little, but she gathered her courage and stood up, holding her side where Rick had hit her earlier. She walked slowly to the door and opened it just enough to see who it was. The man with the scar nodded politely. "Evening, ma'am. Sorry to bother you this late. I'm looking for a man named Rick Dalton. Does he live here?" Emily froze. "Why do you want him?" The man's tone was calm but firm. "He picked a fight earlier at Murphy's bar. Things got out of hand. He ran before we could talk things through. We just want to clear the air." Emily swallowed hard. "He's not here," she said quietly. "He left a while ago." The man nodded again, glancing over her shoulder. He could see the broken furniture and the bruises on her face. His eyes softened. "You okay, ma'am?" She hesitated, trying to hold herself together. "I'm fine. Please, just go." The man looked down and took a deep breath. "Ma'am, my name's Cole. My guys and I don't mess with families. We just needed to find him. But if that man hurt you, we'll handle it." Emily shook her head quickly. "No! Please, I just want peace." Cole nodded, stepping back into the rain. "All right, ma'am. We'll be around if you need us." He turned to his men. "Let's go." But before they could mount their bikes, Tommy suddenly ran to the door and shouted, "He hit her!" The boy's voice cut through the rain like thunder. Everyone froze. Emily, Cole, the other bikers. Tommy's face was red with anger and tears. "He hit my mom again. He always does. Please don't let him come back." Emily covered her mouth, whispering, "Tommy, stop!" But it was too late. Cole looked at her, then back at the boy. His jaw tightened. "What's that man's car?" She hesitated again, trembling. "The old red truck. He took it with him." Cole nodded once, understanding everything without another word. He turned to his men. "Mick, Ray, find that truck. I don't care how far he's gone." The two bikers mounted their bikes and rode off into the rain. Cole stood there for a moment longer, looking at Emily and Tommy. "Lock your doors, ma'am," he said. "You won't hear from him again tonight." Then he walked back to his bike and disappeared down the dark street, leaving only the sound of thunder and the faint smell of gasoline. Tommy stood by the door staring into the night, not sure if he had done something right or something dangerous. Miles away, on the old highway that led out of town, Rick Dalton's red pickup truck swerved through the rain. He had another bottle of whiskey open on the seat beside him, and his radio blasted old country songs. His face was angry and flushed, but there was a hint of fear behind his eyes. He kept mumbling to himself, "Ungrateful woman. I put a roof over her head, feed her kid, and what do I get? Attitude." He slammed his hand against the steering wheel. "I'll teach them both a lesson when I get back." The wipers squeaked as they fought to clear the rain, but he barely noticed. His mind was spinning from alcohol and rage. A few miles behind him, two motorcycles roared down the same road. Mick and Ray, Cole's men, were seasoned riders. The rain didn't slow them down. They knew how to track trouble, and they had a feeling this man would lead them straight to it. "Cole said he drives a red pickup," Ray shouted over the wind. "Yeah, and there it is," Mick replied, spotting the faint glow of taillights ahead. "Let's keep our distance till he stops." They followed for several minutes, careful not to be seen. Finally, Rick pulled into an old gas station that looked nearly abandoned. One flickering light glowed above the pump. He got out of his truck and stumbled toward the convenience store. The clerk inside looked nervous as soon as he saw him. Rick slammed a few bills on the counter. Whiskey, the cheap kind. The clerk nodded quickly and handed him a bottle. Rick opened it right there, took a long drink and turned to leave, but stopped when he noticed two motorcycles pulling up outside. He squinted through the rain. The men dismounted slowly. One of them, Mick, took off his helmet and smiled coldly. "Evening, Rick. We missed you at the bar." Rick frowned, his words slurring. "Who the hell are you?" Ray stepped forward. "The guys you shouldn't have messed with." Rick laughed harshly. "You bikers think you scare me?" He took another swig from the bottle. "You touch me, I'll call the cops." Mick shook his head. "You won't need the cops, buddy. We're not here to fight." Rick's eyes narrowed. "Then what do you want?" Mick's voice hardened. "We just came to say, hit a woman again and you'll answer to us. You hear me?" Rick laughed again, but there was less confidence in his tone. "You don't know me. You don't tell me what to do." Ray leaned closer. "We know enough. A scared kid cried to our boss tonight. Said you hurt his mom. That's all we need to know." Rick's laughter faded. His hand shook slightly as he lowered the bottle. Mick stepped even closer, his voice low but dangerous. "You ever touch that woman again, we'll come back. And trust me, next time we won't be talking." Rick stared at them for a long moment, breathing heavily. Then he turned and got back into his truck, slamming the door. The bikers didn't move until his taillights disappeared down the highway. Ray exhaled. "You think he got the message?" Mick nodded. "If he's smart, yeah, but I doubt he's smart." They mounted their bikes and rode back toward town, the storm slowly easing into a quiet drizzle. The rain had stopped by sunrise. The smell of wet grass and damp soil filled the air around the small house. Inside, Emily sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. Her hands were trembling slightly, but she tried to hide it from Tommy, who sat across from her, drawing on a scrap of paper. He was quiet, more serious than an 8-year-old should be. Every few minutes he looked up at her, checking if she was okay. She smiled faintly. "You didn't sleep much, did you?" Tommy shook his head. "I was scared he'd come back." Emily sighed. "He won't, not for a while." Tommy looked down at his drawing. It was of a motorcycle, big wheels, bright headlights, and 3 men standing next to it. Above them he had written in block letters, "The Good Bikers." Emily stared at it for a moment. "You think they're good?" she asked softly. He nodded. They looked scary, but they weren't. The man with the scar talked nice. He didn't yell. Emily took a deep breath. "Sometimes people who look rough have the kindest hearts," she said quietly. Just then there was a knock on the door. Emily's body tensed instantly, her heart pounding. She stood up slowly and looked through the peephole. It wasn't Rick. It was Cole, the man with the scar, standing on the porch with a paper bag in his hand. Emily hesitated, then opened the door a few inches. "You again?" Cole nodded politely. "Morning, ma'am. Didn't mean to bother you. I just wanted to drop this off." He handed her the paper bag. Inside was a loaf of bread, milk, and a few cans of soup. "I figured you could use a little help," he said. Emily looked at the bag, unsure how to react. "You didn't have to do this." Cole shrugged. "We're not heroes, ma'am, but sometimes the right thing's simple." Tommy peeked from behind his mother. "Hi," he said shyly. Cole smiled a little. "Hey, champ, you draw?" Tommy nodded and held up his paper. Cole crouched down to look at it. "You drew my bike pretty good. You got talent, kid." Tommy grinned for the first time in days. Emily's voice softened. "He likes drawing machines. Cars, trucks, anything that moves." Cole stood up. "Good. Maybe someday he'll build one instead of drawing it." There was an awkward pause. Emily wanted to say thank you, but part of her still felt uneasy. "I don't want trouble," she finally said. "I just want my son safe." Cole nodded. "You have my word, ma'am. You won't see that man near here again. We'll make sure of it." He turned to leave, but before he walked off, he said quietly, "If he does show up, you call Murphy's garage and ask for Cole. That's my shop." Emily watched him go, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. Safety. That night she made soup for dinner and smiled as Tommy told her stories about his biker friends. For the first time in months, laughter returned to their small home. But far away, trouble was brewing again. 2 nights later, the wind howled across the fields. The quiet neighborhood had gone to sleep, but in the distance, a red truck crawled up the main road like a predator in the dark. Rick Dalton's eyes were bloodshot, his jaw tight. His truck's front bumper was dented, his windshield cracked. He had spent the last 2 days drinking, angry, and humiliated. The memory of those bikers confronting him burned like fire in his chest. "Touch her again, you'll answer to us," he muttered bitterly. "We'll see about that." He parked his truck a few houses away, turned off the lights, and stepped out. The smell of gasoline followed him. He staggered toward Emily's house, holding something heavy in his hand, a crowbar. Inside, Emily was asleep on the couch. Tommy had fallen asleep beside her, his head resting on her shoulder. The clock on the wall ticked softly, the only sound in the house. Then came the first knock. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to wake her. She sat up, heart racing, listening. The knock came again, harder this time. She whispered, "Tommy, wake up." He rubbed his eyes. "Mom?" She hushed him. "Go to your room and lock the door." He obeyed instantly, sensing the fear in her voice. She waited until she heard the small click of his lock before she stood up. The third knock came, followed by a man's voice, slurred and hateful. "Emily, open up!" Her blood turned cold. She didn't move, didn't speak. Rick slammed his hand against the door again. "You think you can hide from me? You got your biker friends to scare me, huh? You think I'm done?" Emily backed away slowly, her breath shaking. Then, before she could even think of calling for help, the front door burst open with a crack. Rick stumbled in, crowbar raised, eyes wild with rage. "You made me look weak," he shouted. "You told them, didn't you?" Emily backed toward the kitchen, her voice trembling. "Please, Rick, don't do this. Tommy's here." "I don't care," he roared. But just as he took another step, the faint roar of engines echoed in the distance, a deep, familiar sound. Rick froze. His eyes darted toward the window. Outside, 2 motorcycles were pulling up fast, headlights cutting through the dark. Then a third one followed, Cole's bike. Rick's face twisted in disbelief. No way! The bike stopped right outside the house, engines idling low. Cole and his men stepped off, their shadows tall against the porch light. Emily stood frozen, tears in her eyes, as Cole pushed the door open wider and stared at Rick. "I told you not to come back," Cole said calmly. Rick gripped the crowbar tighter. "You don't tell me what to do." Cole stepped forward, his voice low and steady. "You brought this on yourself." Behind him, Mick and Ray spread out, blocking the exit. The air grew thick with tension. Rick's breath came fast. "You think you can scare me in my own house?" Cole shook his head. "This ain't your house, Rick, it's hers. And tonight she gets it back." For a few seconds, no one moved. The rain started again, tapping against the windows. Then, slowly, Rick lowered the crowbar. Not because he wanted to, but because he knew, deep down, this fight was over. Cole walked closer until they were face to face. "You ever touch her again? Or that kid, I swear to you. There won't be a next time." Rick glared, his jaw shaking, but he couldn't find the strength to speak. Cole pointed to the door. "Leave. Right now." Rick finally dropped the crowbar, turned, and stumbled out into the rain. His truck roared to life, tires screeching as he sped away into the darkness. Emily sank to her knees, sobbing quietly. Cole crouched beside her. "It's over, ma'am. He won't come back this time." Tommy peeked from the hallway, eyes wide but hopeful. Cole looked at him and gave a small nod. "You did good, kid. You spoke up when it mattered." The boy smiled weakly. "Thank you for coming." Cole stood, glanced once more at Emily, and said softly, "Some fights aren't ours to start, but when we see wrong, we don't ride past it." Then he turned and stepped back into the rain, his men following behind. The sound of their engines slowly faded into the distance. Inside the house, for the first time in years, there was peace. A week passed after that night. The rain had cleared and the mornings felt brighter. Emily started taking small steps toward a normal life again. She began baking bread for the neighbors, cleaning the house and helping Tommy with his schoolwork. There was laughter again, quiet. Gentle laughter, the kind that had been missing for years. But Cole hadn't forgotten. Every evening, after closing Murphy's garage, he would ride past Emily's street to make sure the house was safe. He never stopped. Never knocked again, just made sure the lights were on and everything looked peaceful. One night, he parked his bike at the end of the road, lighting a cigarette as the moonlight hit his scarred face. Mick and Ray were with him. Mick leaned on his bike. "You think that guy's really gone?" Cole exhaled smoke slowly. Men like him don't just disappear. They crawl away, wait till everyone forgets, then come back worse. Ray nodded grimly. "So what's the plan if he does?" Cole flicked his cigarette to the ground. "Then we make sure he never hurts anyone again. Ever." Back at the house, Emily sat by the window. She saw the faint shape of motorcycles under the streetlight. For the first time, that sound didn't scare her. It made her feel safe. But far away, in a cheap motel on the edge of town, Rick Dalton wasn't done. His pride was shattered. His drinking had turned to rage. He sat at a small table with two strangers, men who looked just as dangerous as the bikers who'd warned him. "You sure it was that crew from Murphy's garage?" one of them asked. Rick nodded bitterly. "Yeah, Cole Murphy. He thinks he can humiliate me in front of my family." The man smiled coldly. "You want payback? We can handle that, but it'll cost you." Rick slid an envelope of cash across the table. "Just make it hurt." The man grinned. "Oh, it'll hurt." That night, as the town slept, a new kind of storm started brewing, one that had nothing to do with rain. 2 nights later, Cole and his men were working late at Murphy's garage. The sound of wrenches, engines, and country rock music filled the place. Cole was under a bike when Ray called out, "Hey boss, you expecting visitors?" Cole rolled out and looked toward the front gate. 2 pickup trucks had pulled up, headlights bright. 4 men stepped out. One of them was Rick Dalton. Cole stood slowly, wiping his hands with a rag. "Well, look who crawled back," Rick sneered. "You think you can scare me? You and your biker gang?" "I brought friends this time." Mick cracked his knuckles. "You sure you want to do this here?" Rick pointed at Cole. "You humiliated me. You made me look weak in front of my woman and that brat. Tonight, I fix that." Cole's tone was calm but sharp. "You should have stayed gone, Rick." Rick smirked. "You should have minded your own business." Before anyone could say more, one of Rick's men swung a metal pipe toward Ray. The fight broke out fast, loud, brutal, and messy. Cole ducked the first, punch thrown at him and slammed, his elbow into his attacker's jaw. Mick grabbed another man by the collar and tossed him into a workbench, sending tools flying everywhere. Ray took a hit to the ribs, but countered with a hard punch that dropped his opponent to the floor. Rick swung wildly with a wrench, catching Cole across the shoulder. Cole stumbled back, then grabbed Rick by the jacket and shoved him against a motorcycle lift. "This is for her," Cole growled. He threw a solid right hook that sent Rick sprawling across the floor. Rick coughed, blood dripping from his lip. "You think this makes you a hero?" Cole's voice was low, steady. "No, but it stops you from being the monster." Rick reached for a knife, but before he could swing, Mick kicked it away. Cole stepped forward, grabbed him by the collar, and stared into his bloodshot eyes. "If you ever go near that woman or her son again, I swear you won't get a second chance." He released him, letting him fall hard onto the concrete. Rick crawled toward the door, muttering curses. Cole wiped blood from his brow. "Let him go," he said to his men. "He's already lost more than he knows." The sound of the trucks fading down the road filled the silence. The garage was a mess. Oil stains, broken glass, dented metal, but Cole didn't care. He looked at Mick and Ray. "We're done being patient." Ray frowned. "You mean?" Cole nodded. "We're ending this. Our way." The next morning, Emily dropped Tommy off at school and stopped by Murphy's garage to say thank you again. Cole was standing outside, tightening the chain on his bike. His knuckles were bruised, his shirt torn, but he smiled when he saw her. "Morning, ma'am." She looked at his injuries with concern. "What happened?" He shrugged. "Just handled a little business." Emily studied his face. "He came back, didn't he?" Cole didn't answer. "He didn't have to." Her eyes filled with worry. "You can't keep risking your life for us." Cole gave a half smile. "It's not about risk, ma'am. It's about right and wrong. That man crossed a line no one should." Before she could respond, Mick walked over. "Boss, we got word. Rick's packing up. He's heading north." Cole turned to Emily. "He's running. But men like him always leave a mess behind. I'll make sure he doesn't get another chance to make one." Emily grabbed his arm. "Cole, please, don't do anything you'll regret." He looked into her eyes for a long moment. "Ma'am, I already regret not doing more the first time." That afternoon, Cole and his crew rode out of town. 3 bikes roaring down the highway, engines echoing like thunder. They tracked Rick's truck, through back roads until they found it parked. At an old lumberyard on the outskirts, Rick was inside, trying to load his things when he heard the engines. He froze. The sound grew louder, closer, until 3 motorcycles stopped right outside the gate. Cole dismounted, taking off his gloves. "You running again, Rick?" Rick grabbed a crowbar from the back of the truck. "This time, I'm finishing it." Cole stepped forward. "So am I." The fight was quick but fierce. Rick swung the crowbar hard, grazing Cole's arm. Cole countered with a solid punch that sent him backward into the mud. Rick lunged again, but this time Cole blocked, twisting his wrist and knocking the weapon away. He grabbed Rick by the collar, breathing hard. "You hurt a woman who loved you. You scared a child who never deserved it. And you think you can just drive away?" Rick spat blood. "You think you're better than me?" Cole's voice was cold. "No. I just don't hide behind whiskey and fear." He shoved Rick hard, sending him crashing into his own truck door. Rick fell, gasping, too weak to stand. Cole stared down at him for a long moment, then turned to Mick and Ray. "We're done here." Rick groaned, rolling onto his back. "You gonna kill me?" Cole shook his head. "No, I'm not giving you that kind of end. Living with what you've done is worse." He mounted his bike and started the engine. "You ever show your face in Willow Creek again, you won't walk away." The 3 bikers rode off, leaving Rick in the mud as the wind picked up dust around him. That night, Cole stopped by Emily's house one last time. She opened the door before he could knock. "You found him, didn't you?" she said quietly. Cole nodded. "He won't be coming back." Emily's eyes glistened with relief. "I don't know how to thank you." Cole smiled faintly. "You already did. You're safe. That's enough." Tommy appeared behind her, holding a small drawing, 3 motorcycles riding into the sunset. He handed it to Cole. "It's you and your friends." Cole looked at it, smiling softly. "That's perfect, kid. Maybe you'll ride with us someday." Tommy grinned. "Maybe I will." Cole turned to leave, walking toward his bike. Emily called out, "Cole, I hope you find peace too. He paused, then said quietly, Ma'am, peace ain't something men like me find. It's something we protect for others. He started the engine, and the roar of his motorcycle faded into the cool night. Emily stood in the doorway, holding her son close, watching the taillight disappear down the road. For the first time in years, the house behind her wasn't filled with fear. It was filled with quiet, real, peaceful quiet. Willow Creek had changed. The roads were smoother, new houses had been built, and kids rode bikes down the same street where a frightened little boy once cried for help. Tommy wasn't that small boy anymore. He was 18 now, tall, confident, with the same sharp eyes his mother used to say could see through anyone's lies. He worked at a local repair shop after school, fixing bikes, cars, and engines. He'd learned everything by watching Cole years ago. Standing at Murphy's garage, fascinated by the way those machines came alive in his hands, Emily ran a small bakery in town. She smiled more these days, though there were still moments when she'd stare out the window, remembering the pain that once haunted their home. But her smile always returned when Tommy walked in, smelling of grease and freedom. That summer evening, Tommy was in the shop finishing up a job when he heard the familiar rumble of motorcycles outside. He smiled instantly. He knew that sound anywhere. He wiped his hands and stepped outside. 3 bikes parked in a neat row, and the man in the middle took off his helmet. The same scar, the same calm strength. Cole. Tommy grinned. You still ride like thunder, Mr. Cole. Cole laughed softly. You still remember that sound, huh? Tommy nodded. You made sure I'd never forget. Mick and Ray joined them, older now, but still with that same wild spark in their eyes. Cole looked around the shop. You've done good, kid. Real good. Tommy shrugged modestly. Learned from the best. You and your boys taught me what it means to stand up when no one else will. Cole smiled faintly. Your mom doing all right? Tommy nodded. She's happy, baking every day. She even saved enough to buy that old house next to the bakery. Good woman, Cole said softly. There was a brief silence. Cole looked at him again. You ever hear from your stepfather? Tommy's face darkened. No, not until last month. Cole's expression hardened. What happened? Tommy reached into his pocket and handed him a folded letter. He sent this. From prison. Cole unfolded it slowly. Inside was a short note written in a shaky hand. I lost everything. You were right. I was the monster. Tell your mother I'm sorry. If I ever see her again, it'll be to ask for forgiveness and not revenge. Cole looked up at Tommy. You believe him? Tommy shook his head. No, but I believe he's finally where he belongs. Cole nodded once. Some men only understand pain when it comes back to them. That's the kind of revenge that lasts. Tommy smiled faintly. Guess I learned that from you. Cole put a hand on his shoulder. You learned it by surviving, son. They spent the evening talking and about engines, life, and the kind of strength it takes to protect people you love. When the sun set, Emily came by with a basket of muffins. She froze when she saw Cole, her eyes wide, then soft with gratitude. Didn't think I'd ever see you again, she said quietly. Cole smiled. I promised I'd keep you safe, just making sure I kept my word. She smiled back. You did more than that. You gave my son a future. It was late now. The town was quiet again, just like all those years ago. Cole stood beside his bike, getting ready to leave. Tommy followed him outside, holding the old drawing he'd made as a child and the one with the 3 bikers and their motorcycles. It was a little faded now, but still perfectly recognizable. He handed it to Cole. I kept it all these years. Thought you should have it. Cole looked at the paper for a long moment. You sure, kid? Tommy nodded. It's a reminder of the night everything changed. Cole folded it carefully and tucked it inside his jacket. Then I'll keep it safe. Emily stood on the porch, her hands folded, watching quietly as the engines started up one by one. She called out, Thank you, Cole, for everything. He gave a small nod. You don't owe me thanks. Just keep living. She smiled softly. We will. Tommy stepped closer. Hey, Cole, you ever think about slowing down? Settling somewhere? Cole grinned. Nah, the road's my home. Some folks build houses, others build peace one ride at a time. He put on his helmet, the roar of the bike filling the street. The headlights lit up the night as he and his men prepared to ride off. But before he did, he looked back one last time. You did good, Tommy. Don't ever forget what your voice did that night. You changed everything." Tommy nodded, his eyes glistening. "I won't forget." Cole smiled and turned the throttle. The three bikes rolled down the quiet road, their engines fading into the wind, not with fury but with peace. Emily walked up beside her son, resting her head on his shoulder. "You think we'll see them again?" Tommy watched the horizon. "Maybe not, but every time I hear that sound, I'll know they're out there watching over someone else." She smiled. "Just like angels with engines." He laughed softly. "Yeah, exactly that." They turned back toward the house. The porch light glowed warm and steady. The storm, the fear, the pain, all of it was behind them now. In the distance, under the same sky where it all began, three bikers disappeared into the night. Not heroes, not outlaws, just men who carried justice on their shoulders and peace in their hearts. And somewhere deep inside, Tommy knew their revenge hadn't just stopped a monster. It had given life back to two souls who had almost forgotten how to live.